pay the price. So I was very fortunate, again, finding chiropractic, and I thought, wow, this is just a cool way of doing it. And then from chiropractic in the school we went to, functional medicine really, really just made total sense to me. So that's what we do now. We practice functional medicine and manual therapy.
Great, great. I'm sorry, I clicked another button on there because I didn't think we were live, but we are. So
yes, we are.
Did I mess that up, Michael?
No, you are still good.
Okay. All right, so sorry about that. So we are here to talk about how the gut is related to our immune health. And that might be something that people know about, and that might be something completely new to some of our listeners. So how do the two relate? Because I did hear that the gut is considered a second brain. So how is that related to our immune system?
So 80% of our immune system is created in the gut. So think about it. If your gut is not working properly, then it's most likely your immune system is not working properly. So it's an axis. They talk back and forth to each other, the gut immune. I'm sure some of your listeners heard of the vagus nerve, how the vagus nerve goes from the gut to the brain, and it's a two-way communication. And it's that way with our gut and our immune system. So when we look at supporting the immune system, we want to look at supporting the gut. And most people think, okay, well, if I have an immune system problem, I'm just going to take some vitamin C, and that's where they start. And often that's where they stop. So you want to go next level, and you want to look at how well is your gut operating? What is the efficiency of your GI system? So the gut immune is related. And if you have a good gut, you can usually get a good immune system.
Well, an immune system, a good immune system right now is pretty top of mind with everything. And so we're going to be heading into the flu season, right? And so why can't I just take some vitamin C and be good to go?
I wish it was that simple. Wouldn't that be great if we can just take some vitamin C and then we are all done? But your immune system requires much more than vitamin C to operate efficiently. So let's look at what the immune system does. So the word immune means to protect, right? So if you think of your body as this incredible castle, you want to do everything you can to protect that castle from invaders. Now, when we talk about invaders with our immune system, we're talking about those microbes, right? So if you're talking about like a viral pathogen, a bacterial pathogen, a parasite, all those can be invaders. Now, real simple, if somebody's invading the castle, we send out our knights. And if the invasion's even worse, we send out the Knights of the Round Table, the special forces. And it's the same thing with our body and our immune system. If it's something simple, our innate system takes it over, our innate immune system. And if it's something really that's happening bad, then our special forces come out, our adaptive immune system. So you want to make sure that your immune system is operating properly. And that's basically what your immune system does. It is there to protect you. It's a network that's made up of your cells, your organs, and your tissues. And because it's made up of your cells and organs and tissues, it takes more than just vitamin C to help your immune system.
So what are some other things besides vitamin C that would help boost our immune defenses?
Well, we can talk about what can support our immune system, right? So, we hope things boost it. So you're looking at your vitamin D, you're looking at your vitamin K. These are your fat-soluble vitamins. Of course, vitamin C is good, but you're also talking about eating well. That's extremely important, right? So we can't expect our immune system to operate efficiently if we're eating a bunch of processed foods. It just doesn't work like that.
Why not?
Because our body cannot process that processed foods properly to help support the immune system. So, for example, think about like if you're eating a bunch of, for me, let's say growing up in Philadelphia, right? So if my lunch is a soft pretzel and a yoo-hoo, which is, again, that's a breakfast of champions as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that's missing is a cold slice of pizza. We don't have what we call good micronutrients in that type of food. And the macronutrient, your protein, fat, and carb, is horrible, as it's pretty much just a carb meal. But the micronutrients, right? Those minerals that are important, those vitamins that are important, those are very poor dense. They are not nutrient dense foods. So a food that's not nutrient dense is not going to support your immune system. You get much more out of eating a good salad, a good piece of protein like meat or bison, something like that, than you would drinking some yoo-hoo and a soft pretzel.
Right. Right.
Although it did taste good.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing, right? Our standard American diet is based on, eating something that tastes good, but isn't necessarily nourishing our bodies at all.
Right. So there's hyperpalatable foods, right? So remember the Lay's commercial, you can't eat just one Lay's, right? You eat one potato chip,
Oh,
then the
yeah.
next one, like 2 begets 4, 4 begets 6, and you can't stop.
Right.
So those are hyperpalatable foods. And the term, what happens when we start eating mindlessly, you're just off in la la land, is called hedonic hyperphagia. That is the actual term for it, hedonic hyperphagia. And that means we're just eating food, just not even thinking about it. And listen, don't get me wrong, I've done that with Trader Joe's plantain chips. I think, so is a plantain chip a better choice than a potato chip?
Right, right.
It is. Did I need to eat the whole bag? I did not want to. But, again, it's one of those things that it goes down so easy, right? Very rarely does anybody go, oh, my God, that head of broccoli was fantastic. I need 2 more heads of broccoli. Right? That doesn't happen. Even when you eat something like an apple, you eat 1 apple, you only eat 4 apples.
So how the heck how do we get out of that, right? We need to become more present in what we're doing.
Present in what we're doing. And also it's the availability, right?
Yeah.
And my patients, they ask me that all the time. How do you not eat this junk? And it's simple in the sense of the junk is not purchased, right? I just don't buy it. But also,
well, what about my kids? I have the kids living in the house.
Right, so, why don't you ask my kids that, right?
Yeah, right.
Why don't we have a junk drawer? Because I said, if we have a junk drawer, it's going to be empty within a day or 2, right? So those type of foods make us want to eat more. And it's hard when you have children, right? So again, it's one of the things where you pick and you choose the best snack, right? It doesn't have to be, it can be something really lousy, but it doesn't have to be. And it can taste something better than being the junk food, right? So again, plantain chips, not a horrible choice. If I went with the regular potato chips, probably a horrible choice, right? So it's making a better choice. But many of my patients ask that same thing, even when they go to the supermarket, how do they not go down the aisle and buy the Skittles? How do they not buy the M&Ms? But also, it's motivated by how you feel, right? So what I like to say is when you're stressed, you're eating desserts. And desserts spelled backwards is stressed, right? So you're not going to have a lousy day, come home and go, where's the sauerkraut?
Yeah.
It's not going to fulfill you, right? It's not going to fulfill you. So I think, and my opinion is that we have such a lousy day. We're under stress. The day wasn't good. We sat in traffic, whatever it is. So you know what? We want something that's sweet. So it kind of combats that. So the question is, well, what do we do, right? What do we do if we're not going to go for that? And that's where I feel actions like meditation, working out, walking, all that's really, really important. Sleep.
Right. Are going to really help battle those. We talk about stress a lot in my programs, and that not only is going to affect your hunger and cravings, but it's going to affect your gut, right? And so that's what our topic is, but my gosh, it's so underlying everything.
So what do you say to your patients that say, listen, I need, you don't understand, I need this sugar. I have to have this.
Right.
And they're angry when they don't get it.
Yeah. It's part like brain, right? We have to figure out kind of what's going on in your brain. Are you deficient in certain neurotransmitters that are kind of pinging your brain and causing these cravings? And then back to that mindfulness, to stop and be in the present moment and just wait a second and say, am I thirsty? Am I really hungry? And then did I get a good night's sleep last night? Did I have a plan for today? Because if you haven't eaten and oh my gosh, it's 1:15 and I need that, fill in the blank, potato chips, chocolate cake, cookies, whatever, then you set yourself up for, not really success. So if you step back, have a good plan, and I know this is it's like throughout functional medicine. So it's going to totally relate to gut health and your immunity, that if you have a plan, it's going to help you stay on track, right? So whether you don't have the crap in the house, whether you have healthier snacks, you know, you need to have a plan, right?
Correct.
So, yeah.
So you
So
help them create strategies then for like their week, their day.
yeah, their week, their day. I keep people accountable. You know, some people we don't check in for a month. It depends, because we want people to be able to incorporate this into their daily lives, right? You don't want to always be talking to somebody every day saying, "Oh, don't," you know, I don't want to say don't, right? Make sure you fill your cart up with, you know, healthy vegetables, healthy proteins, healthy fats, right? And without throwing the Doritos, the Lay's potato chips, the chocolate ice cream. I like chocolate, by the way, into your cart. And, you know, and then you start building those habits, and over time, those habits start really shifting into bigger results. Because, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you can't just say, um, you know, eat cauliflower. If people don't like cauliflower, you got to find other foods for people to eat, people to incorporate in their daily lives. Yeah. So in terms of the gut and the immunity, can we talk about like maybe how digestion and like digestive sequencing might play a role?
Sure. So, you know, it starts with the first bite. Um, I myself, it's taken me many years not to be a fast eater. I am a fast eater. So chewing your food thoroughly is extremely important. If you remember the whole macrobiotic phase that a lot of people are going through, one of their principles was to chew your food, I mean, so many times that it's almost liquid by the time you swallow.
Right.
That was difficult. I tried that. I mean, I know one of the studies out there say you need to chew your food 44 times. I can't get there. I mean, it's just hard, you know. And if I'm eating in between patients, that was hard as well. So I've stopped that because I was eating too fast. When you eat too fast, that begins to set up an improper sequence of how to properly digest your food. So chewing your food thoroughly is extremely important. And that simple act is enough to help digestion. Now, as I was sharing with you before, we had a patient who came in with a problem where there was complaint of neck pain and TMJ. And we were talking back and forth for a while. And, you know, she then shared, well, I also have stomach pain. So when you start looking chronologically, she had gastric distress, she had neck pain, she had TMJ pain. And, you know, finding out what's going on, it turns out that she had, eventually we found out that she had an abscess. And that abscess created a bacterial infection, which created the problem in the gut, which created the problem in the TMJ. She could not chew her food properly. So the combination of not chewing her food properly, the combination of the abscess creating the infection, created her gut problem. And when we were able to add some probiotics, she also went on antibiotic as well by her doc, and worked on TMJ, everything was okay. So that's where you see that the small act of chewing is very important, because she wasn't chewing properly, and that created the problem because she's swallowing large boluses of food, and we can't have that. So chewing as part of the sequence is extremely important. And then as it, you know, goes through, you know, you swallow, it goes through your esophagus, into your stomach, your small intestine, large intestine, and then out. And that's the thing that we want. We hope that it goes out, because if it doesn't go out, then we have a whole nother problem.
Right. And I think that some people, so we're talking about going out really quick. In terms of number two,
Yep.
I think some people still think it's kind of normal to not have a bowel movement every day. So they go every 2 days, every 3 days. I don't even want to say longer than that. And don't realize the repercussions that may be having, or likely are having, on the body, not just the gut, but the body.
Right. So let's talk about that, right? So when patients say, no, I'm not constipated, I go every 3 days. Well, that's constipation. Well, it's been like that my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, just because something happens all the time doesn't mean it's normal,
Right.
right? So they think it's normal, or my dad was like that, or my mom was like that, and I'm like that. So therefore, it's
It's all
probably right. It's
right.
normal, right?
Right.
So that's not normal. So we want to go every day. You look at some of the literature we read, they say, do you want to go 3 times a day? Some say 2 times a day. You want to go at least once a day, right? And I always say that when you go to the bathroom, it shouldn't be a wrestling match, right? I mean, it shouldn't be a wrestling match. You should be able to sit, go, be done, and leave. Now, if it's not, then that's part of constipation. So constipation meaning I don't go. Then there's constipation that I go, but it's small pellets. So it looks like, rabbit duties, if one would say, looking at that Bristol stool chart. Is it that, every time I go every other day? Is it I can't fully evacuate, or I go and I just don't feel empty, right? So there's all different ways looking. So is it a mechanical thing? That's where we talk about, raising your knees a little bit above your hips. So if you're using like a squatty potty, sometimes it's a little bit too much for some people and lower back pain. So I'll have them just do like some phone books, because if it's raised up too much, then it actually aggravates their lumbar spine. So sometimes it's just, a couple phone books. If you can find a phone book, or, something that can, something that can raise it, that's helpful. And drinking water is helpful. All that kind of stuff helps the constipation. But I think it's important to find out why they are constipated. So that comes to, our basis of the functional medicine, finding out the root cause. Listen, having fiber isn't always the answer. And we've had patients who were constipated and they went on fiber and it became even worse, right? They got further bloated. And then we had patients who had diarrhea and they get on fiber and they do a little bit better, right? Because that actually lends some bulk to the stool. In constipation, that can become a problem. So imagine you can't pass now you're making it bulkier, even more difficult to pass.
Right.
However, the thing is this: if the trash isn't being taken out, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So I had that in Philadelphia, right? We grew up in row homes, Philadelphia, and sometimes our sanitation department went on strike, and not everybody had a garbage disposal back then. So you put the trash outside in the back, and you're okay for 2-3 days, right? But day 4, you're not really okay. Day 4, you're starting to see some white bugs running around, these little like maggot kind of things, and then day 5 it gets worse. Day 6 it gets worse. So not going to the bathroom every day, your trash isn't being taken out. So if you're backed up, you're literally backed up, and that's creating a compromise to your gut and to your immune system. So if the trash isn't being taken out, you're going to have a problem.
Right. Gosh, yeah. And then and the liver, right? Everything's getting backed up in all of your organs.
Right. So the liver, a lot of us have read and learned that the liver is a filter, right? But take a look at the article. If anybody's listening, Chris Masterjohn did a wonderful article talking about the liver as an organ that helps biotransformation. And when you look back at it, you look at like what you and I have learned, phase 1 and phase 2 conjugation of the liver, it really is creating a biotransformation. So it's taking in what we're eating and it's biotransforming it so that it can evacuate through our colon, a bowel movement, through our urine, and through our kidneys as urine. So that's really important. And then another way that we would detox, because everybody's heard about detox liver, is through sweat, right? So you want to make sure that you're pooping, you're peeing, and you're sweating. And that helps liver health. That helps with digestion, because if your liver isn't working properly, your digestion is not working properly. If the liver is not working properly, the digestion is not working properly, then the immune system is not operating efficiently.
So gosh, I have so many things that are going through my head right now. So to help like kind of all of the above, what are some tips that could help? Because I'm already thinking, right, to help you sweat, to help you go to the bathroom more, whether it's bowel movement or urine. I'm thinking exercise, I'm thinking hydration, right, to move things around. I mean, there's so many. You think, why does my practitioner tell me to drink more water? Why does my practitioner tell me to exercise? Why does my practitioner, so it's tying all this stuff together and it makes sense.
Right. So it's a matter of, when you look at the whole body as a system, it's an operating system that needs to be fed the right type of compounds so it operates efficiently.
Right.
So, you have two cars. You have a Ford Pinto and you have a Porsche. You're going to take care of that Porsche way better than you're going to take care of that Ford Pinto, right? You're going to make sure that Porsche, that's your baby, right? You're going to do everything you can for that. Your Ford Pinto, like, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? So you want to invest in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's most important, right? And I see people do this with their pets. And I love dogs, right? So I speak to my patient like, I got my dog on a grain-free diet. I'm like, how's he doing? He's doing fantastic. You might want to consider a grain-free diet. No, that won't work. Right? Wait a second. Your dog's doing absolutely wonderful on a grain-free diet, and you're telling me it won't work, right? But it does, right? So, you want to make sure that you are giving yourself the best that you possibly can. So that doesn't mean you have to run out and buy organic food, right? So I'm not saying that, but you know what? You can do things like drink water. That's great. Okay, well, you can make it a little bit better. Get one of those Berkey water filters so you're drinking a little bit cleaner water. Fantastic. You do not have to drink a tremendous amount. We've learned half your body weight in ounces. That's good. But remember, you're getting hydrated through other foods that you're eating. And you're probably having, maybe some people have coffee or tea throughout the day, fruit. You're getting hydrated. Okay. Also important, I will say, is you have to get in your electrolytes. Sodium is really, really important. So in fact, somebody who's constipated, sodium can help them go, right? So we're looking at sodium, looking at potassium, looking at calcium, we're looking at magnesium. There's a great drink out there. Do you follow Rob Wolf at all? He does the Healthy Rebellion. So he's got his elemental drink and his electrolyte drink. So if somebody's going to drink an electrolyte drink during a day, that does not mean your Gatorade. That does not mean your vitamin water, because it has a lot of sugar in it. We're talking about something that is a true electrolyte drink. You do get a better outcome, right? Your body does work efficiently. We need these type of compounds in our body. And then you touched on sleep briefly, right? You said about sleep and exercise. Exercise is important. So some people exercise too much and they create a problem. And some people, not enough.
Why is too much exercise a problem?
It actually contributes to inflammation in the body, right? It actually breaks down more tissue than you want. And what happens with a lot of people exercise, the big thing is they're not giving themselves enough time to repair.
Right.
That's the biggest problem. And a lot of times they then begin to work out with injuries. So it's just a little ankle problem.
Yeah.
Now it's just a little knee problem. Now it's my nagging lower back. Now my other side is feeling it. And they never gave themselves enough time to rest, repair, rejuvenate.
Right.
So exercise is great. Taking the time to warm up, probably taking the time to cool down, mixing up the exercises is really important as well.
Yeah. And then, that if you over exercise, you could be increasing cortisol levels. And then people, like you said, if they're exercising with injuries and they try to push through it, it's not so bad. They might be popping Advil or Motrin, and they just think, it's better that I exercise. So let me take this over-the-counter medication. It must be safe. It's over the counter, but we know better than that, right?
Right. Cause problems, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the commercial of the people? It was for Advil, and they were taking it before you exercised, before you played basketball.
I think it's still on, right? Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I can't imagine that. I don't watch much TV, but taking something before, then you're dampening your warning signals, right? So, not having pain is a signal. Inflammation is a signal. So, if you're taking something to dampen those signals, you are putting yourself in a precarious position where you can do worse damage.
Right. Because I always say that the design team did not make a mistake. Your body really doesn't make a mistake. It's responding to the inputs and the signals that we're putting into it. So we have to listen to what our body, the feedback that our body is telling us, is giving us.
Oh, I agree. But the problem is, I think they're listening to what they see in the commercials, like, it's this
That's
pill, it's that pill. Right. Exactly. So, yeah, I think you have to be careful.
Right. Yep. Okay. What else do we want to touch on, Michael? We talked a little bit about kind of what you eat. What about the timing of food, time restricted eating, and sleep and stuff like that?
Right. So let's talk a little bit about intermittent fasting and time restricted eating.
Yeah, would that help your gut and your immune system?
So it definitely helps your gut. So, it gives your gut the ability to rest, right? So if you sprained your ankle, what do they say, right? You want to rest it, you got to raise it, you got to rest it, all that kind of stuff. Use ice on it, treat it, right? So when your gut's inflamed, let's say you go through a period of gastritis, your gut just doesn't feeling well. By fasting, you're allowing your gut, your GI system, your gastrointestinal system to actually repair and rest, right? Because the more you feed it, the more it's working. So it's already irritated. You don't feel well. You're bloated, or you have diarrhea, or constipation, you have gastritis, your stomach's bothering you. Feeding it more is not allowing it to rest. So we have our patients, start a 12-hour fast. Now, everybody's fasted for 12 hours. If you've given blood work, you know what? You got to fast for 12 hours. Nobody died. You're perfectly fine. You're sleeping through most of it anyway. And in that time between, let's say, 7 to 7, that 7 to 11 is difficult for most people. And that's where they have problems, because they always want to eat because they're not occupied. And when I say they're not occupied, the brain's not occupied.
Or it's a habit, right?
It's a habit. It's time. I need a little something before I go to bed, right? So, but you can make that 12. And once you make that 12 hours, I think 12 and a half hours are easy, and 13 hours becomes a little bit easier. And then you can move into this time restricted eating. So a lot of people like to say, well, intermittent fasting is, I'm going to fast one day, eat the next day, and then I'm going to fast the following day, right? So you're one day, the 2-5, you're fasting one day, no food. Next day you're eating, next day you're fasting. Then we know there's people that have the 7-day fast, the water fast. And I say this again, if you're going to fast like more than one day and you're just going into day 2, I think you should fast under supervision of a physician, right? You'd be with your functional medicine doc, your primary, whatever it is. If you're going to do more than 1 day of fasting, 2 day of fasting. But let's just talk about time restricted eating, which is like that beautiful, window where you're just not eating for 16 hours, and you have this window of 8 hours where you eat. And it just gives your body the ability to rest and allows your body to use the nutrients that you're taking in for energy. So everything that I eat is about, is it going to give me energy? That's what I want to know. And a lot of people eat for pleasure, but the food I eat is pleasurable to me. So the food I eat gives me pleasure and it gives me energy. It allows me to work those long days that, I work. So that window of eating, 8 hours, and then, 16 hours of rest where you're not eating anything.
I like that. I follow it. It works for me, but it doesn't always work for everybody. So again, you got to listen to the feedback from your body and kind of see. And we were talking earlier, don't knock yourself out if you don't make that whole 16 hours, that day. Right?
Yeah. And also it depends. Like I will say, like I said before, on days that I work out, I will feed usually sooner, because I feel I need to replenish. And that's really important.
Some people work out in a fasted state. They find that they can do that, but not everybody can do that. So
right, I usually do that. I'm usually a minimum of 12 hours, not eating. And I find that, and then I work out, because I find that if I work out when I'm full, it's not a good workout. I also find that if I eat something not on my normal food range, that workout the following day is not good. Whether that's mental and it's not good, or it's physical and it's not good, it's still not good.
Yeah, but I think, again, you got to listen to your body's cues, because if you eat a Big Mac, a fries, and a chocolate shake, and it doesn't make you feel good, but dang, it tasted good, and then the next day you're tired or sluggish, and then you don't make that connection to, what the heck did I eat yesterday? But if you're like more in tune with what you're eating on a regular basis, you can detect what foods are making you feel a certain way.
Well, let's talk about that for a bit, right? So,
Okay.
we eat the Big Mac, we eat the fries, we may not feel good. We don't realize that it's the Big Mac and fries. And then we go back for the Big Mac fries again, then we'll go for pizza, and we feel lousy for long periods of time. But we don't know that. So people who present with, I've got brain fog, I have joint pain, and they're not giving you my guts bothering me. They're not giving you my immune system compromised. They're saying, man, my energy just stinks. I can't think straight, and I feel just like, they always give me I can't make a fist, and my knees bother me, and all that, and not realize that it's related to their food.
Right. Yeah, I have a perfect example of that because, I've always eaten healthy my whole life. And so when I kind of started on this journey, I gave up gluten, right? So I was giving up gluten for, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. And I felt good. And then reintroduced gluten and I felt like crap. It was either joint pain. I didn't really have a lot of gastrointestinal symptoms. I had like some itchiness on my skin. I'm like, yeah, that didn't bother me before. But then you have this new normal, right? My threshold was here and now it's here or here, whatever. And then you realize when I eat this, it makes me feel like, suboptimal. And you just get used to feeling suboptimal all the time. But why do you want to settle for that? Right.
Right. So a lot of times when we're doing like our food journals, I always have them rate, how they feel, that scale of, 1 to 10, what does the brain fog feel like? What does the joint pain feel like? What does the bloating feel like? And they put in the foods that they eat. And then you can pick up the patterns where you see, I ate X, I felt this. I didn't eat X, this was down this way. Right. And it's wonderful for the patient to recognize that because they make that connection and then they always want to test it again. And that's okay. Right. And I want them to, right? I want them to test it again. And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times they test it again and they feel horrible. Now, what we have had in the past is where we did work on someone's gut and where a food before working on their gut bothered them, after we were able to get the gut under control, whether we use, a cholesterol product like SBI Protect or something, immunoglobulin, whether we use glutamine, aloe vera, something like that, when we got the gut under control, they were able to return to those foods and not have either that reaction at all or that same intensity of reaction.
Well, I get this question a lot about gluten, right? So a lot of times gluten is an offending food. And patients will ask me, do I have to stop eating gluten for the rest of my life? So, what do you say to your patients with that question?
So when patients come in, they say to me, I'm gluten-free. And then they tell me, here's the gluten-free products that they eat. So the gluten-free products are just substituted with a tapioca starch, a potato starch, or a rice starch, right? So they're not really gluten-free per se, so we really try to move them to that grain-free type of setting, right? Really grain-free. And it's a protocol. I tell them it doesn't have to be forever. We're going to try this for 3 to 4 weeks. The first week, you're not going to like me at all, but then it gets easier and easier and easier. And then we start reintroducing foods back to see how they're doing. So do they have to be gluten and grain-free forever? I tell them that I want them to find the foods that irritate them and to avoid those foods. And a lot of times when we go through the program, they feel better. They may be able to introduce those foods, maybe of not the same amount, and still enjoy themselves and not have a severe reaction.
Well, and I know you just took the GI course with Karazian. So do you go into further testing with people instead of, all right, let's just eliminate gluten? Do we need further testing for that?
Sure. So, we'll look at, I'll do regular conventional blood work as well. We'll run the celiac panel to make sure that they don't have, a celiac sprue where there's actual problem with them having any kind of wheat. And then we'll use, a stool analysis as well, because I want to see what's underlying. Like the question you asked before, if somebody doesn't have gut pain, but they still have all this other type of symptoms, could it be a parasite? And it was a great question, right? So it could be a parasite. And we want to take a look at that. We want to see what the bacteria looks like. Now, some gastros will argue, well, we don't know what a normal microbiome looks like. And
Yeah,
I work
let's
with a
talk
lot of,
microbiome. We hear that a lot.
right?
Yeah.
So normal microbiome, right? We don't know what the microbiome looks like. So why will you try to balance that out? And that's a question with a lot of the gastros that I work with. And it's not that we're trying to look for a balance, but we're looking for those imbalances that are so severe on either side of the range, right? And that's really what we're looking for. So we want to see if there's bacterial overgrowth, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We want to look for, is there any type of over or parasites? We want to look how well they're digesting their food. All that's really important. Is calprotectin, which is a marker for inflammation, is that elevated? If that is elevated, we may have to do a next step where we may need a colonoscopy, right? So we have to look at it clinically. So I feel those tests combined with conventional blood work gives me a good idea of what I need to do next.
How their enzymes are working.
Sure.
What about leaky gut?
Right. So intestinal permeability or intestinal hyperpermeability. If you look back 10 years ago and you bring up leaky gut in the circles of intestinal hyperpermeability, the gastros will look at you like you're just a nut job, right? You're a lunatic. Here we go again, these crazy people. But now, if you look on PubMed, right, you look and you Google, intestinal permeability, hyperpermeability, leaky gut, it's everywhere. So, leaky gut, intestinal hyperpermeability doesn't occur usually in by itself. So there's usually a cause for this leaky gut to occur. So, well, what does that mean? So imagine if we have these great barriers in our intestine, and if something breaks through these barriers and gets into the bloodstream, protein, bacteria, things that's not digested. So again, we go back to the importance of chewing food, right? That stays in our bloodstream, there comes a reaction to it, and we get leaky gut. Now, symptoms of leaky gut, I'm bloated, or I got diarrhea, I've got head pain, I've got joint pain, my stomach bothers me all the time, I got brain fog, I don't have energy. So there's many symptoms that fall under this leaky gut. But we want to go looking for what's pushing it, right? And that's where, one of the stool tests that you and I both do could be great, because we're looking for, is there under H. pylori, which is a bacteria that can really create a lot of dysfunction in the gut. There's a lot of antibiotic use, right? Because that can create a lot of dysfunction in the gut, right?
Toxins. And just toxins. Things, we already talked about, right? The offending foods, lack of sleep, stress, toxins. There's so many things that can contribute to it. And just getting back to the topic of our conversation, right? Because we're talking about all these different things, but it's going back to the health of your gut and that being optimal to help with your immune system, right? To help your immune system be optimal. And that's more than just, hey, doc, what probiotics should I take, right?
Way more.
Yeah, because I get that question a lot, and it goes a lot deeper than that.
Right. So the gut immune axis is significantly important to support your health. So you want to take care of your gut, you want to take care of your immune system, not just your immune system, because, again, like we said, somebody gets sick, now they're worried about their immune system. They weren't worried about their immune system before, right? But I want people to be concerned about their immune system all the time.
I think that's a huge take-home point, right? You don't want to wait until you're sick with whatever you get, right? Common cold, flu, whatever. You don't want to wait until then to remedy it, right?
Correct.
Why not though? Why can't we just take something when we get sick?
Because it doesn't work like that, right? You can take something when you get sick. Look at the common cold, right? So I don't care if you're using chicken soup, taking vitamin C, over the counter stuff, it doesn't really matter. It still has to run its course.
Got to run its course.
It's got to run its course, right? You can take things that can help make the symptoms feel better. I get that. Now, some of the over-the-counter stuff that makes the symptoms feel better also can contribute to another problem, right? So, so we want something more naturally, right? So then we get in, now we're going to take our vitamin C, and now people are concerned about vitamin C, when they're sick. So weren't you concerned about that before, right? So the idea is you don't want to get sick, right? That's the whole idea, is to get your immune system so you don't want to get sick. So where does a strong immune system come from? So, well, one, when we're born, right? So that's the first beginning of our immune system, right? So some will say, well, if we had a traditional birth versus a C-section, that's going to be different on the baby, what the baby gets as their first hit of how they're going to have their immune system strong. Growing up on a farm, growing up with a pet, kids who grew up on the farm.
Because a lot of people probably have no idea what you're talking about. A vaginal birth versus a cesarean birth. When you pass through the vaginal canal, the baby gets bathed in all of the mother's immune cells, right?
Right.
To help with the baby's immunity. And
Correct.
now what they're doing, and a lot of places at least, that when the baby's being born, they're via C-section, they're still slathering the baby with, mother cells. So, that's really great. And then some immunity that you could get from breastfeeding versus bottle feeding. And then
that passive immunity, right? So that, you get mother's milk, you get that passive immunity.
Right.
Which is very helpful, because we talked about innate, adaptive, and then there's passive.
Yes. And so you get exposure through the mother's birth canal, but then you also get the exposure from the skin, right?
Correct.
So you're starting to get exposure to all of these other organisms that you start building your immunity to. And then go ahead, growing up on a farm.
But staying up on that exposure, right? So growing up on the farm, you are exposed to all this different type of bacteria, right? So you grow up on the farm. There's been studies that kids who grow up on the farm have a stronger immune system than the kids who grow up in the city, right? If you grow up with a pet, you have a stronger immune system, right? So you have to have some exposure to build up the immune system. Now, I remember as a kid growing up, you'd share your friend's Coca-Cola, right? I mean, he's sipping, you're sipping, there might be a third person sipping, right? Yeah. And nobody even thought, oh my God, you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
We had something called blood brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
No.
Oh, that's where you cut a little cut in your thumb and knee cut your thumb and you put your thumb together. Now, if that happened today, parents would go ballistic, right? Yeah. So how about this? The chicken pox, right? On my block, if one person got the chicken pox, chicken pox. Oh, go play down the street. Let's get this done and over with, right?
Right.
Can you imagine that would happen today?
Yeah.
Right. But all that exposure helps to build our immune system. So if we live in an ever clean world, our immune system actually be compromised. So now what happens as we get older? So as we get older, we want to know, again, we want to avoid foods that cause inflammation. We want to get our stress under control. As we get older, we don't want our immune system being hit so hard. We want to do things that can really support our immune system.
Right. Super important. That's great. Growing up on a farm. Blood brothers. I think I might have heard that. I don't know. Yeah. That
People would freak out today.
Yeah. Major freak out.
Major.
All right. So anything else? Did we skip anything? Sugar.
One thing from mindlessness to mindfulness.
Yes. Okay, good.
Right. So let's talk about that. So you brought up a fantastic question, because we talked about the importance of sleep. And my statement was, hey, listen, when it becomes, trying to get your circadian rhythm hooked up to when it becomes dark outside, you start turning down as well. You go to sleep and then, get up when the sun gets up. And you brought up a fantastic statement and question of, listen, the kids aren't going down to 8 or 9 o'clock at night. That's my time to just scroll through my phone. And I get it. And here's what my suggestion is. I think if you're going to scroll through the phone, you got to put a limit on it. So it's a mindlessness activity, and that's fine, but you want to go from mindlessness to mindfulness.
Yes.
So put a timer on it, scroll through your phone a little bit. I'm also a big proponent of not having blue light exposure an hour and a half before you go to bed. So as I share with you, I have this app called Quibi. It has TV shows on it. They're 7 minutes long. I'll watch 1, maybe 2 at the best, and then I'm done. And then I go do what I need to do to start turning down the night, which could consist of some stretching, yoga-like, breathing meditation exercises, journaling, and then I am done for the night and read a little bit before I go to bed, not from my phone, but from a regular book, and doze off. And then I'll also use at night magnesium and melatonin. Those are 2 things that help me sleep better. So that
Yeah,
helps your immune system.
not everybody has to do that. But if
No,
you implement like a bedtime routine and some bedtime hacks, I think that could really make a difference. But being more mindful of, all of a sudden, dang, I was on my phone for 30 minutes, what the heck? So just being more mindful of that is important. And I feel like having a scheduled bedtime routine and a morning routine really helps, get you going, and helps you kind of with your maintaining organization and kind of stress as well.
agreed.
You could kind of be all over the place, and especially with the COVID, the people are working from home. A lot of times they'd be in their pajamas all day, and I don't think people are doing that as much anymore. But you wake up, you go on your phone, and then all of a sudden you're working, and then it's 3 o'clock, and you
Right.
just you gotta have some sort of routine, and that's going to help yourself, right?
Agreed. Agreed. The routine is really, really important. And I think I agree. A lot of people are falling, I don't even know what day it is kind of deal.
Right.
They didn't know what was going on.
Right. So I also wanted to make sure our listeners knew about a course that you've been developing and a couple books that you have. You
Yeah.
need to get that going, and you need to get those books published.
Yes, yes, yes. So the course is called The Gift of Health, because I feel health is truly a gift, and GIFT stands for Gut Immune Functional Training. So it's a 6-module course that people will be able to view, and there's a lot of very cool downloads and some quizzes they can take with that as well. Then we see back, God, I think it was 2008, was published author in 101 Great Ways to Improve Your Health. And then in 2010, I published A Boomer's Guide to Chronic Pain. And we're going to try to get that. That's in like softback right now. And we're trying to get that into like a PDF so people can have that one. And then we're working on the third one. So all about nutrition, but it will be a humorous book on nutrition.
How can people access those? Do they just go to your website, or what's
So the book is still 101 Great Ways to Improve Your Health that you can get online. I know Boomer's Guide to Chronic Pain, you still get that through Amazon. And
Okay.
then, come to the website. We got a lot of cool videos there. The Center for Functional Health, a lot of great videos on exercise on YouTube as well.
Great.
So that's where we are, the centerforfunctionalhealth.com.
Center for Functional Stuff. And we talked about so many things today. We're going to wrap it up, but I wanted to give our listeners maybe just a couple key takeaways that could, they should, really try to think about implementing into their daily routines to make a difference in their gut health and optimize to help improve their immunity.
Excellent. So the sleep routine, like we discussed, is super important. I think that's one of the great things you can do. If you do not exercise, you have to find an exercise program that you like. And that's really important. And I say find something that you like, because if you like it, you will do it.
Right.
I know a lot of people that started running, but they don't like running, and they force themselves to run and they are not happy. So if you're not a runner, you're not a runner, and that's okay. I am a big fan of martial arts. I think everybody should be practicing martial arts on some level, whether it's, a hand-to-hand kind of combat martial arts, big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or you go Tai Chi, Qigong. I love those as well.
Or start with the self-defense. That might kind of ease your way into it. Yeah.
Something that gets you moving and thinking, all that helps in the right way, right? So, and I feel that it also decreases stress. And to be honest with you, a lot of those communities, they're really great communities too, right? So, I mean, it's not like you go around like, oh, there's a bunch of people I don't like. They're nice people, right? So I feel those type of places are really a wonderful way to grow, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I think that's important. And listen, if you don't like to exercise, I've actually gotten some of my people to get into fencing, right? So you think about fencing. Why would I do fencing? Well, you've never seen somebody who fences with poor posture.
Interesting.
Right? You never see somebody who fences who isn't breathing right. So that's the other thing we didn't touch on is breathing, right? The act of breathing, box breathing is really important. Going through your breathing exercises are extremely important. So that's something that's simple, that doesn't cost you anything. and you will get great benefit from learning how to begin to diaphragmatically breathe versus chest breathing. So that's really important. Hydrating, if you're not hydrating, start drinking, your water, increasing your fruits and vegetables if your gut allows you to, because some people guts don't allow them to increase their fruits and vegetables. Making sure, like you said, get enough protein, right? You want to make sure that you're eating enough protein throughout the day. And the simple act of time restricted eating. Those are the things that you can all do that really doesn't cost anything, that supports your immune system, and a fantastic return on that investment.
Yes, yes, so important. And I know that you have a private Facebook group that you help, or just on your regular Facebook page. You should share that as well.
It is the Center for Functional Health. Yep,
On
Optimal
Facebook.
Living Group and centerfunctionalhealth.com, both.
Okay, right. And I have a private Facebook group as well, and we talk about these things on a regular basis that you can really help make these small shifts to make massive shifts in the long run, but just little by little.
Right.
Let me say one other thing, but yeah, I wanted to make sure that yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you have access to this information. You have it on your website. I have it on my website. You have your Facebook pages. I have my private Facebook group as well. And if you need more help in terms of implementing some of these things, then get with a functional medicine practitioner like myself, or with Dr. Kaye, or somebody in your area, somebody that you've been following, somebody that you feel comfortable with, to really help really make those shifts that you've been working on and they're not working for you, or you just need more guidance. So there's a lot of resources out there, and thank you so much for talking with me today about this important information about your gut health and helping with your immunity and helping us gear up for the flu season. So
cool.
Thanks
Thank you
for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, if you're going to tune in later for the recording, just post it below or send us a message. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.